Welcome to the Midnight Graveyard, where we'll discuss everything dark, gruesome, and macabre. So grab yourself a drink, something like a little warm human blood or some snake venom, and settle in for our first discussion. Up first, the TV series From. It's currently on its third season, and it is a mind bending adventure. You follow this small town community, and they deal with supernatural monsters at nighttime, and then usually just the weirdness of humans during the daytime. So there's a bit of supernatural overlap in both night and day, but it gets very weird and very creepy. So I personally love this show. It's incredibly addictive. I've gone from one episode to the next in probably a weekend. It is just captivating, overanalyzing the characters, trying to suppose what the producers are doing, what the creators are doing as they come up with these plot twists and adventures that you're on, and then also just trying to figure out who these monsters are, why they exist in this small town, and where we're headed with it. One thing that drives me nuts with this show is how much everybody in this community that is trapped here and dealing with supernatural freaks doesn't communicate with one another. They don't take the time to figure out who each other really are, where they came from, how they ended up in this small town, and whenever they experience something odd, like they see a vision or they hear a sign or they have some weird thing in a dream that connects with something in reality, they never bother to tell each other. The amount of times that I have screamed at the TV or wondered why they haven't gotten together and created some in-depth murder mystery board to just figure out who's who and what's what, it's immeasurable. This is one of the most frustrating pieces of the show, and I think honestly I'm going to create my own little detective board to try to figure out what the hell is happening in this series. So the whole show has this web of information. Things are definitely interconnected, and you're just not sure why. So once I get that detective board up, we'll take a look at it. The next thing to consider with this series are the monsters. They are a weird crossbreed between zombies, vampires, and shapeshifters, really. So they like to eat guts and definitely devour humans the way a zombie would, but they only come out at night, and they enjoy blood. They also seem to manipulate thoughts and dreams and thinking in the way some vampires do, depending on the lore. But the other piece with this is that they are shapeshifters, so they morph into human lookalikes, though so far we haven't been able to see that they're necessarily people that are connected to our main characters. So there's a familiarity about them, but we're not like, oh, that's my mom. So there's this piece that's familiar, and we know that their true form is incredibly disgusting, looks very much like the old school typical zombies with the rotting corpse frame and the pale face, not the sexy zombies that we see a lot more today. So really that grotesque zombie. So they look like them unless they shapeshift, and they can manipulate their voice to sound like humans, and they use that to try to coerce the characters, the townspeople, to let them in. So these vampire things cannot enter their homes as long as they have this talisman hanging over the door frame or near, and everything is blocked up and boarded up. So they knock at the door and they call your name and they try to convince you, let me in, let me in. Typical to some different vampire lores, right? Needing to be let in, given permission to be let in. The talisman is still something I have not quite figured out, and I'm not sure. There are these talismans that are kind of these clay creations that were found in a cave, and for whatever reason seem to be able to keep these nighttime creatures out, but if you let them in, the talismans don't do anything, right? So they stop working. And so they are manipulative creatures to try to come in and just kill you and everybody else that's inside. When the talisman were not there, there was a period of time that the talisman were not known in this community, in this tiny little town. And so people just ran and hid, and many people died quite regularly. So you kind of hear the tale of how these talismans came to be found and used, and what that meant for this town as its population grew and its way of life evolved to almost be normal, while mixed in with knowing that, oh, at nighttime we gotta get inside and hunker down. The other weird thing with these monsters is that we get glimmers of their ability to communicate with some of the town people, whether just through their head, their thoughts, like it's another voice speaking to them, or even in their dreams. And it's not quite clear at the moment what is accurate, what's really a reality, and what is maybe just a dream, but we're seeing some overlap. So these creatures definitely have power, and there's weird things that happen that show that they may also be connected to each other as monsters, like they are of a same hive. And that there's something greater than them. Not necessarily something that they fear, but maybe something that controls them or sends them out on their missions. So there's more that meets the eye, but currently the biggest threat is these nighttime creatures and just existing with them in the day-to-day. So essentially the key to survival here is to have a talisman, have no empathy for anybody else, and remain a hermit, and you will exist fine in this town. But of course, we are developing a community. So as you watch, you see these people learn to coexist and almost carry on their lives while this madness is happening around them. The other huge piece to consider with watching the show is just time. The existence of time. Does it exist? How is it existing? Is it the same for these creatures of the night as it is for the people in the town? When you start to consider time and reality, that detective board is going to come in handy, because this show will take you for a loop. So wrote some things down so I could try to comprehend what time is. I am not sure if this town is existing outside of time, or if it's frozen in time. Could these townspeople enter back into reality, so to speak, and just pick up right where they left off? Or is time moving around them but somehow slowed down where they are? Is time interconnected in this community? Because there seems to be some connection with the people in this town that have also had connections to their new reality when they were not in this town, whether they were visited by these creatures in dreams before, or they saw drawings or created drawings themselves, that they have this connection, this intuition to this place, but didn't know it until they ended up here. So there's this weird underlying piece of reality, existence, and time mixed in with the monsters and supernatural. Also, everyone ends up in this town almost like entering through a portal. They were headed someplace completely different. They were, I guess I should have said that this is a spoiler alert. But essentially no one intends to come to this town. No one knows that it exists, but somehow people end up here. And it's unclear why. They're not coming from the same places. They're not all coming at the same time, and it's a gradual change in population over the episodes. So really this idea of portals and reality really come into play here. Other weird things that happen in this town, no one seems to spend a lot of time discussing or thinking about. One family kind of creates a list of questions, like a question wall, but they're not exactly connecting the dots or even just creating a visual of how we could connect these things. So this is what I would do. I would have some community board that would connect things as best as I could, because you have music randomly turning on in the diner, but then precisely connecting with people. And I want to know, are those songs actually in the little jukebox that they have there, or are these just songs that are being controlled by a supernatural entity, by energies? Is it a government experiment? Is it aliens? I don't have a clue right now. I think it could be all of these things, but there's weird stuff with the electricity, the music, phone calls, the way that people arrive and have certain skills that are needed just in the nick of time. So there's some type of weird balance that seems to be happening, and someone who's controlling, or something that's controlling all of this. And we know that the monsters that come out at night, they're not the only monsters that are there. There's clues that there were communities of people existing before the current ones, and that some people ventured out further and encountered some other things, different webs of life and just creepy beings. So we're still in the dark as to what's happening and who's in charge of all of these creepy, creepy things. All of this to say is that this show is amazing. It is creepy, it's spooky, it's got your mix of murder, reality, sane people conflict, and weirdness, social behaviors and things like that, as well as just social living, right? They have gardens and they grow their own cannabis, and they farm and work together, and everyone eats for free at the diner. So they've got this beautiful life coexisting during this really horrific time where these dark creatures come out and just consume them and manipulate them and control them. All the while, there's something even larger at play, but they can't focus on it because their most immediate needs are survival. So anyway, this show is fantastic. I don't know. Is it a commentary on human existence today and the fact that we are all completely distracted by our basic needs being met in society, that we can't see the evil players that we have? Possibly. But I think there might be more here. And either way, it's incredibly fun. It's an engaging show. Right now, I think you can only watch the first 2 seasons on Amazon Prime. And I believe season 3 is airing on MGM. So it's kind of unfortunate. And maybe we can encourage them to extend this TV series out to different nations and different platforms, because it is awesome. It's a very thinky show, a very dark show, and one that leaves you wanting the next episode immediately after. So I will be working on my detective board to try to figure out, can I solve From before it finishes? And hopefully you will have the chance to watch an episode or two to think about what could possibly be going on. Please leave some comments on your theories. The wilder the better, because anything goes. Oh, Lil Bones is getting excited to check out what comes next. And next up will be a zombie movie. So we'll be able to talk about a zombie movie, see what creepy things are happening there, and I'll have some book series for you to share in the future. Like I said, I love things all dark, gruesome, disgusting, supernatural. The creepier the better. So your suggestions, your comments, your ideas, completely welcome. And I hope that you continue enjoying your spooky drink, and that you join me for the next chat and give me more ideas for what to share. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you later, ghouls and goblins.